Apparently, I can't get enough of talking about strong women, so it is only natural that Karlach would be next on the roster. So honestly, without further ado, let's talk about Karlach. I always start things off with talking about how people look, so let us say that Karlach is a tall and well-built person. Her muscle-bound body is toned after many years battling in the layers of the hells. Her skin is covered in scars and burns presumably received in Avernus, and she has some tattoos on her left arm and parts of her abdomen. She also has some small exhaust vents on her shoulders that help aid her infernal heart, is my assumption. Despite her honestly quite intimidating presence, Karlach has a soft and very cute face, if I do say so myself. Her left horn curves backwards and out, while the right one seems to have been broken off some time ago, perhaps in the hells, but honestly maybe even just during her shenanigans in Baldur's Gate. It sounds like she was a bit of a wild child. She also has dark hair with reddish accents. It is long and a bit messy with some simple braids adorned by metal discs. And the other side of her head is trimmed off, quite badass. Her eyes are dark yellow with the distinctive tiefling slit pupils, and light moles and freckles mark her nose and upper cheeks. And you know what? That's pretty much how our girl looks. So let's move on to personality. Karlach is an extremely passionate individual who strives to live life to the fullest. Something to be admired, really. She tends to speak excitedly regarding any of life's simple pleasures, whether that be food, drinks, friends, or intimacy. Her demeanor is genuinely joyous and very forward, having no fear of loudly proclaiming her love of being alive and how much she cares for those close to her. Even the most negative, if you will, companions love her. She's hard not to adore. Karlach is also very protective of her friends and companions, taking a very genuine interest in them, especially with Will, which I think is simply adorable. It's like enemies to friends, or potentially lovers if you're either Will or Karlach origin, and then try to romance each other, of course. But before I get too much into Karlach now, let's talk about Karlach's past. Karlach was born to Pluck and Karlach Cliffgate. I'm pretty sure you also say it like Karlach. Karlach was raised in Baldur's Gate in a modest but happy household in the outer city. Young and restless, Karlach would often work odd jobs as a means to support her parents, often getting into trouble in the meanwhile. She kind of reminds me of Maul in that way. I feel like we also are supposed to see a bit of Karlach in Maul, but anyway, I digress. Even as a child, she was joyous and full of life, and despite the hardships, she loved her life in the city, surrounded by family and friends. You can even see where her parents are buried in Baldur's Gate, causing quite the cute interaction, really. At some point, Karlach got hired by Enver Gortash to act as his bodyguard. Also, is his name really Enver? To me, he's Gortash all the way, but anyway, I can't get past that. I don't know what that is. I mean, I knew his name was Enver, but like, his name is Gortash, whatever. Rising quickly through the criminal and political circles of the city, Gortash was beginning to paint a target on his back, and Karlach seemed the ideal person to protect him. Lured initially by the money and chance to support her parents financially, which correlates to the money, I suppose, Karlach eventually developed a deep respect for Gortash, not only because he trusted her enough to put his life in her hands, but because he also made her feel valued. The pair worked well together for a while, until Gortash made a deal with the archdevil Sariel and sold Karlach to her for a grand sum of money in order to fund his plans for domination of the city. Which is like, Gortash, you're making it a bit hard to like ya, you know? You know that? Sariel's interest in the tiefling was to test her new infernal machine, and Gortash was confident Karlach would be able to handle it. So, after getting betrayed and pretty much just sold to the devil, Karlach was taken to Avernus and quickly worked on, happening faster than she could even process it. Sariel ordered her heart to be replaced by an infernal machine, aimed to test the limits of machine and soldier, really. She then quickly put her into an army to fight in the blood war. Trapped and without any other choices at hand, Karlach would fight for 10 years in the war, surviving day by day, fueled by both vengeance and a desire to live free. She would prove to be an exceptional soldier, slaying great demons and becoming one of Sariel's prized fighters. Being both a prisoner and a champion of the Archdevil, she was alone, surrounded by devils and demons who offered no comfort, away from home and everybody she held dear. But it's not all bad, because after these 10 years in the Hells, the sudden appearance of a Nautiloid presented itself as a chance for escape, and Karlach made good on the opportunity. Cleaving the devils around her, she made her way towards the hurtling ship before running into Will, brought to Avernus to hunt her. The two battled briefly, Will giving chase as Karlach desperately reached for the ship, until they made it to the Nautiloid before being separated during the siege. Captured by the mind flayers as the ship escaped Avernus, Karlach was then tadpoled just as all the other uninvited guests and awaited a slow transformation via ceremophosis. To me, that is still such a weird ass word. After the crash of the Nautiloid, Karlach can be found at the Risen Road. If Will was recruited into the party, his quest, the Blade of Frontiers, will add a map marker that pinpoints Karlach's location. Otherwise, the party will have a vague idea of where to find her. Anders, which in Danish it's Anders, so I kind of just want to say Anders because it's weird to say Anders to me, but anyway, we'll see what I do. Leader of the Paladins reveals they are hunting a dangerous devil who's been hurting refugees, and that they must bring it to justice. When found, Karlach explains that she too was on the Nautiloid and was infected with a tadpole, but that she's not the monster she seems, and that her current priority is to get rid of the paladins haunting her and spreading lies. At odds with what the paladins, or Will, told the party about her, the group can press her further. Karlach explains that she escaped Avernus and the Archdevil Sariel, and that the paladins in the Toll House are nothing more than bloodhounds sent to bring her back to the Hells. If Will was brought along, he confirms she's indeed his target and attempts to convince the party to aid him in slaying her. Karlach pleads that she's no agent of Sariel, but rather her victim, and that she took the first opportunity she had to escape Avernus and return home. The tadpoles infecting the group will react to this, prompting Karlach to share her memories of recent events, seemingly confirming her story. Regardless, the party can decide to side with Will, and indirectly with the paladins, and kill Karlach claiming her head, or take her for her word and agree to spare her. This is my choice off and on, because like, off and on, I've never killed Karlach, actually, let me just be very clear on that. Though initially intent on killing her, Will can be convinced to spare her after the visions were shared, and he will direct his anger at his Patreon for deceiving him. Like, our guy is in denial for a little bit in the beginning, but quickly he's like, I guess I'll just have to deal with the consequences! Karlach offers to join the party, and taking her to the paladins lead to a confrontation where Annas eventually drops the act and confirms Karlach's words as true. The paladins are servants of Sariel, and the Archdevil wants her favorite attack dog back. I can't really blame her, she's slay. After slaying them, a frenzied Karlach rages around the Toll House, setting it ablaze, which is quite intense, I must say. I'm like, girl, what are you doing? When talking to her after she cools off, she confesses that she has an infernal engine for heart that allows her to burn as hot as the hills, though it's been running overdrive since leaving Avernus. She wants to find someone who has experience with infernal machinery, and that she heard one of the paladins let slip that one is in the area. This begins the quest, the Hylian's Heart. This infernal mechanic turns out to be Damon, a tiefling from El Tural that learned his trade when the city was taken to Avernus by Sariel and was forced to work on infernal engines for her army. Damon explains that in order to stabilize her heart, the party needs to find some infernal iron, coulda guessed, for him, as it's the only material able to withstand the heat of the mechanical heart. When delivered, Damon upgrades Karlach's heart, stabilizing it while still providing a boost to her abilities. He warns her, however, that the solution is not perfect and that he needs more research and wants to prepare a more permanent repair. Should they cross paths again, he promises to have a solution by then. And then in Act 2, given that Demon have survived the events of Act 1, he will be found in Last Light Inn in the Shadow-Cursed Lands, aiding the Harpers on their stand against Moonrise Towers. Karlach can then speak to him, and he explains that after further tinkering, he can give her heart another upgrade if the party has some more infernal iron to spare. Demon will tweak Karlach's heart for a second time, adding an insulation chamber to cool it to the point that she can touch others once more. This is vital for Karlach, who hasn't been able to achieve physical contact with others for the last 10 years. He also bears unfortunate news though. Her heart can't keep going outside of the hells. It's just too hot to exist in the material plane. The heart will burn her from the inside and consume her if she doesn't return to Avernus soon. Karlach dismisses the idea of ever returning to the hells, which, understandably enough, content to celebrate her newfound ability to touch others for now. When the party finally confronts Ketheric Thorm, the battle eventually takes them down to the hidden Mind Flayer colony beneath Moonrise. There, they spy Thorm consorting with Enver, Gortash, and Arn the Red, with the latter two leading for Baldur's Gate to continue with their plans. And then after dealing with Ketheric, Karlach confesses that she has history with Gortash, letting out that it was due to him that she was sent to the hells and had her heart replaced with a mechanical one. She's now hell-bent on revenge, which I get. Let's take down that Gortash ass! In Act 3, you reach the Wormrock's fortress outside Baldur's Gate, and the party will be notified of Gortash's grand ascension as Archduke, because it's taking place soon, so we are notified. When approached, Gortash will briefly interrupt the ceremony in order to parley with the party, and greets Karlach nonchalantly. The freaking nerve of this man! Karlach immediately wants to get back at him, understandably so, but if she's convinced to stay cool, the party can listen to Gortash's proposition to form an alliance. Karlach will be against it, but can be persuaded to check her hatred for the good of the city. If the partnership with Gortash is maintained, up until the first encounter with the Netherbrain, he will be killed, as the party attempts to control the brain. Ha! That's what you get! Karlach will let out a celebratory laugh and mock his quite anticlimactic end, but the threat of the Elder Brain forces her to focus once more, but I get it. But should the party antagonize Gortash, ally with Orin instead, or simply wish to help Karlach get revenge, you will have to face the Archduke and his minions. When confronted with Karlach, Gortash will coldly dismiss any of her grievances with him, further incensing Karlach, until the quakes caused by the Netherbrain's attempt at freeing itself force Gortash to attack the party for their netherstones in order to subdue it. After the battle, Karlach will come down from the excitement and be visibly very upset. Though she finally managed to kill the person who betrayed her and caused her so much pain, she does not feel any better. Gortash isn't any more sorry dead than he was alive, and her mechanical heart was still set to combust at any time. Her impending doom and difficulty in coping with the feeling of senselessness will drive her into a rage at the circumstances, and she will leave for camp to just cool off for a bit. Back at camp, some time alone allows Karlach to better come to grips with her situation, and though still very desperate, she's positive and decides to focus on the present and the time she has available instead, focused on saving the city that she loves. After the initial confrontation with the Elder Brain, it is made clear that the only path to success is to harness the true power of the Netherstones, which only an illithid can do. Though it's possible for the Emperor to do so, the player or Orpheus can sacrifice themselves and undergo ceramorphosis to become illithid instead. If Karlach is present during the discussion, she will volunteer, arguing that she's on borrowed time either way, and that this way her death would have meaning. If agreed, she transforms into a Mind Flayer and aids the party in the final battle against the Netherbrain. But now, no more netherbrain speech. Now let's get to my favorite part of these videos, which is talking about the dating experience, if it is there, and it is very much there with Karlach. So, dating Karlach sure is an experience. I should make a video of all the times I've cried during this game. However, 90% of it will just have been Karlach scenes in different ways. Okay, so let me just start. Dating Karlach is quite adorable because she's so excited and both shy and quite forward at the same time. I absolutely adore the way that her fires turn blue when kissing you. I'm not really sure what it means. Perhaps that her engine is just more calm, but yeah. When she can finally touch you again, or touch anyone again, things go down with you and your barbarian lover. It's fun and seems to be extremely loving as well. Her romance is filled with happy moments, but also extremely full of sadness and wondering about the future. This is where my crying once again shows itself. Tears just slowly fell from my face when talking about what we would do if we were to live another 50 years together. Like, stop! I can't handle that! I told her we should go to an elvish place, not Elvis place. And like, she said she would follow me anywhere. I can't. Am I a hopeless romantic? Also, yes. And when you make it to Baldur's Gate, you go on a date. A date where things kind of go wrong, but isn't that just typical first date shenanigans? I think so. So that's a nice experience as well. Now I will kind of go into talking about the endings, but then also I am keeping the romance element in check as well. So it's a bit of a combination right now. So we have a few endings for our dear Karlach. One of the saddest ones is one we call a blazing end. After defeating the Netherbrain, Karlach's infernal engine will finally begin to overheat, signaling her end for real this time. With the setting sun on the background, Karlach thanks the player for being there with her, and mourns not being able to join them in its celebrations, and further adventures at that. If you grant her wish not to return to Avernus, you can stay with her until the engine finally combusts, leaving nothing but ashes where she once stood. I cried the first time this happened to me, because I did not know you could go with her to Avernus. And honestly, it's not something I would pick every time, but I digress. I did not do this while romancing her. I sense that it is even sadder, considering you romanced her. But yes, let's see. The next ending, I don't want to talk about this anymore. The next ending is the return to Avernus. When Karlach's heart begins to enter its final stage after defeating the Netherbrain, players can also attempt to convince Karlach to return to Avernus before it is too late. Though she's very much initially against it, she can be persuaded if the player offers to go with her, so that she may not be alone again. Likewise, and I really enjoy this one, if Will has completed his personal quest and became the Blade of Avernus, he too will offer to go to Avernus with her. And I really like that one because it makes sense for Will. I also like Will without his pact and everything, but I think it makes sense. I really like them together down there. But back on the first plane of the hills, Karlach and company prepare themselves to face the servants of Sariel. No longer alone, Karlach welcomes the challenge and readies her weapon in preparation of advancing imps. During Wither's gathering 6 months later, after the events of the game, Karlach mentioned she and Will recently felled a high-ranking champion who carried blueprints for what could be a possible solution to Karlach's mechanical heart. Though the forge they intend to raid is likely well guarded by Sariel's forces, she has an old contact, a guard named Flo, that might be able to help them. Regardless, she expresses joy at being able to see her companions once more, happy to receive the opportunity of a night's rest without the danger of being ambushed by devils. She also comments on how, after spending months together in the Hells, she and Will have grown closer, which is just neat. In this case though, I did romance Karlach and I did go to Avernus with her, and it's not much different than when she goes with Will, because you are just the one she finds the blueprints with. So it's not that special, at least not that different, but I still do enjoy it, and the prospects that you can actually get out of Avernus forever is awesome. Let's let's just stick with that and say that that is actually a good feeling, and it's quite the open ending with you and her, so you know that you can probably come back to Faerun, and that'll be great. But yeah, that's one ending. And last but I guess not least is life as a mind flayer for Karlach. Now, me, myself, and I have never done this, but one of my friends, August, has. And he described it as being quite sad, but let me just continue. If Karlach sacrificed herself and became a Lithid in order to defeat the Netherbrain, she will remain at Baldur's Gate, hidden and feeding from the dying patients of a local healer who they have a wish to die with dignity instead of suffering. When spoken to at Wither's Gathering, she explains that she still remembers part of her, even using some of the expressions she once used in her tiefling form, but with every brain she feeds, she gains all the memories from it, slowly erasing her original identity. Still, she expresses gratitude and happiness at seeing many of her former companions and bids the player a good evening. But the way my friend August explained it or expressed himself, he definitely was not that happy with that ending. He was like, oh, she just became, you know, sort of cold and not the Karlach, who's definitely hot and not cold. But yeah, I see that as an ending if you really don't want Orpheus to become a Lithid, which I haven't done that yet, so maybe I will at some point, but my Karlach though, my Karlach. But anyway, I enjoyed the Karlach experience thoroughly. No wonder she's one of the most elected romanceable characters. I'm surprised, but at the same time I'm really not, because Karlach is that one. Like I said, I describe her as a himbo. Yes, a himbo, not a bimbo, because she just has that vibe about her. She's funny and I like her style. But with all that being said, now we have talked a bit about Karlach. Let me know what character you would like me to talk about in the next episode of this little series. And thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will hopefully see you in the next video. Goodbye, y'all!